I'm Susan Caraballo, and I'm a curator, producer, and recently adopted the term creator as well. And I'm co-creator of the Things Lab with Kerry Phillips.
That's me. So I'm Kerry Phillips. I'm an artist and I teach.
Thank you guys so much for having us over. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about the Things Lab, its core mission, and how you guys started up?
So it started 2 years ago. Just over 2 years ago, I did a huge project at the Deering Estate called Prelude to 2100, which was Knight funded, and several other agencies. And I invited a lot of different artists to participate, and Kerry was one of them. And I, in essence, went to her and I said, I want to create sort of like a thrift store and a library of things as part of this story that I'm creating for the project. And you're the artist in town that works with things, and I think you're the best person. And she loved the idea. And so she created this amazing installation, which was called the What's Its Emporium and Library of Things, as part of Prelude to 2100. And that was up for about a month. And with all the interactions that we were having with the people and the museum goers, I was like, we need to do this in the community. Like, this really is a service, and it's a cool project, and I think we should do it in the community. So we started talking about it, and a lot of different things happened. We applied for different funding sources. Nobody really got the concept. And then we just decided to do it. We were like, we just need to do it and figure it out. And so we finally got very lucky and were able to secure this space.
But even prior to that, we started it because we didn't have a space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can't collect objects and like keep them in our cars or like keep them in our homes. But we started the WhatsApp group. And so it was basically just posting. There's a billion WhatsApp groups and, Facebook and all these places to like put things that you no longer need. But somehow, like with the communities that we are engaged with and then their communities, it's like artists use stuff that's super weird. That like Goodwill doesn't take those things, right? Like Goodwill is very like strict on like what they will and will not take. Like if you're getting rid of stuff, you're like, but this is a half gallon of like perfectly great paint. It's just been open. But so like things like that we know people in the community could use, but they just, where does it go?
Artists.
Yeah, especially artists, but even just regular people. And so we started the chat just to start that exchange of goods, right? Trying to divert things from the landfill, and also like resource sharing, or like, hey, they're giving away a ton of plywood at X place location. I can't even think of how to say that, but like does anyone need this? So it's really cool because we're in these communities that other people aren't necessarily in. And so almost every time a museum or art place does a build out for a show, that all gets thrown away because there's just no storage for all that, or it's very specific. And so even those kinds of ends, as far as like the installer, the preparators, like knowing like, hey, we have all this extra stuff, like let your people know. And so like just redistributing those goods, not just to artists, but everybody, right?
It's such a service to art, to everybody.
Yeah.
Actually, you would never think, because you have these goodies that nobody else has.
Yeah. And one of my favorite, because when Fountainhead was closing, their studios over here, like artists were kind of like, I mean, for years they've been saying Fountainhead is closing, right? But it finally did. And it seemed like the Wild West almost. Like artists were just like picking up their stuff and going like away. And like there was so much left behind. And so we had a few artist friends who had moved out already, but they had stuff left behind that they wanted us to come see and see if we could use or like put on the chat. And things like one of my favorite things was like an artist had collected all of those eye contact containers, like when you use your contacts, that plastic thing. There were thousands. Like I can't even guess how many, because it was like in a plastic bag that like a queen mattress like topper might come in, that plastic. It was full. So this had been years and years and years of collecting that this artist had done for a one-day project. Realized when they were moving, they're never going to do this. Right. So then we put it on the chat, and within 15 minutes, someone came over and like got it. But it's like, it's trash. But it's like, no, someone can use it.
Someone can use it.
Yeah. I'm always like, okay, like 1 or 2 things, that's trash. 50 is like, like, oh, but then like hundreds
that is a
of
project.
something,
That is
it's like,
something you
yeah,
have to put together.
that's art waiting to
That's
happen.
art waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so then further into it, it's like, creativity and problem solving and making do and like using what you have on hand and the resiliency that comes through like mending or fixing things or not just buying and throwing away. Yeah. I don't know if you want to
it all came together. And just going back to the chat, it really started with like 25 friends. And now it's, I mean, I don't know the exact number right now because it shifts all the time, but it's over 1,000.
Yeah.
So I think 1,034 or something. We had to expand into a community because we maxed out. And we were like, we didn't even know that you could do that. But
there's a limit to WhatsApp.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that's really, I mean, that's a base. That's a real base. And a lot of people that are just supporters and just really, have been really using the chat. I mean, we had our last instructor here who's going to be teaching another class, Taryn Hipwell. She was just so excited because she said, I furnished an entire room for somebody that was coming to live with her with things from the Things chat.
That's amazing.
The Things Lab chat. Yeah.
Wow.
yeah. So it really provides a service, and she's just was so ever grateful. She's like, I want to do something for you guys.
And I can't, it's like there's something so different about it than like the free cycle or free Facebook or, things that are free on offer. But I don't necessarily know what it is, but it's like somehow
it's a
different.
Sense of community. Like, maybe. I feel like that's what there is. And, so we just launched a membership, sort of a long story. We're also doing a lending library of things, which is the reason why we were going to launch the membership.
I'm going to ask about that because I'm so curious about that.
And so when this thing with the chat happened, that we divided it in two. Now one is for sales, the other one's for free and pay what you value, which is the way that we operate here. So we started the sliding scale membership because another thing is I think really important to both of us is that it's accessible. So we want things to be accessible to everyone. And one of the things that I say to people when they come in is like our goal is to keep things out of the landfill, but make it accessible to anyone despite their socioeconomic status.
Right.
And I think that's really important to us. So our workshops are on a sliding scale basis. And we tell people pay what you value it to be worth within your budget. And so
which is kind of sneaky because it also means that we don't have to price things.
Right.
Which is
convenient
kind of
for us.
Yeah. But it's also like, well, how much do you think it's worth? Like, how much do you want to pay for it? Like, to me, that's trash. And they're like, oh, I'll pay $10 for it. And it's like, okay, if you want to. But so it's like, pay what you value the item to be worth,
you never know
but
what
also
you're
within your budget.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has transformed the project a bit into a conceptual project as well.
Right. It's an installation.
Yeah. We're constantly, there's so many layers to it. I feel like,
but it's also really because it's been a little bit of not a roadblock, but like a speed bump for a lot of people. Cause they're like, oh, like, I don't know that, like, can you give me a baseline? Like, of like, maybe what it might be. And it's like, no, like, what do you,
I think they don't want to under and they don't want to over.
Right. Yeah. But I've had garage sales before where you price things and the people are like, totally not worth that. And it's like, well, then don't pay for it. Like, don't get it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like almost like people know what it's not worth, but they don't know what it's worth. The value is it's totally like fluctuates. It's constantly changing, and it's different between people.
Subjective. Yeah, it's completely subjective.
That's the word.
So what does a typical day look like for you guys managing the organization? Because you're an art consultant, the curator, Kerry, you're a working artist, and you teach. How do you balance the duties?
I start with some crying. And
like all of us.
Overwhelm. Yeah.
Well, I think a typical day is probably different for both of us because so I work here we're only open Fridays and Saturdays 12 to 4 to the public, right? Because that's really what we can do. And we both have to be available to replace the other if one can't. And we're starting we're starting a volunteer base now. So hopefully that's going to shift a little bit so we can call people in if we need. But I think, it's a little bit different for both of us. But for me, there's
and it kind of depends on what's on the plate.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like, I don't know that, and it's different because we're not open every day.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's a daily like checklist to go through. But there's definitely like always like a press release or an Instagram post or like reaching out to people for workshops or doing some design to like promote some stuff
and a lot of that takes place off site, you know. I think when we're here, I mean, not always, but the focus is really sort of the main area, and also the Library of Things is a big one because we still have a lot to do for that, and that requires a lot. We have to like usually bring up the item up here, photograph it, do research, like what do other lending libraries rent things for? Some things we have lending libraries actually don't have because you know we have a lot of weird different things, and also because a typical lending library is not necessarily with artists in mind, and so we're a lending library that can be accessible to the community, like camping gear or like an air mattress, or it can be a CRT TV that you need for an exhibition. Like Locust Projects right now is renting one that was actually in her show before that, and you know maybe a person, a lay person, if you will not need a CRT TV, but an artist for an installation would, or a projector or whatnot. So we're also catering to artists and to theater companies that they could potentially rent set pieces from us at a very low cost. And again, the idea is to keep it very low. So I know I dove into the lending library, but that is part of, you know, like I said, some weeks are different. Like this week, all of a sudden we got this huge donation of fabric, yarn, what else? Ribbon. And so that honestly derailed the entire plan for the week for me anyway, you know, and for you too, probably. And so we ended up having this, you know, this pop-up sale because we don't have the space for it. So when it was actually delivered and we realized how much it was, we're like, well, we don't have the space for this. So we just made we're like, okay, let's do a sale. And we still have a lot, and we're on day 3 of the sale. So, you know, so it just, we have to be open to that. And I mean, another thing we're doing is what we're calling sustainable redistribution services. And so that also can throw us a curveball. It's a great curveball because it's a contracted labor. So we've been hired by a couple of different organizations, Juggernaut Theater Company, The Bass, and O Cinema, to basically help them empty spaces. So with Juggernaut Theater, we partnered with them with the close and the strike of their show, Conjuring the King. And we basically tried to sell everything on their set for pay what you value it to be worth, just the same way we operate here. And then, and, you know, with everybody, we've had a different arrangement because we've been trying to figure it out. And then the Bass called us up because Kerry had a solo show there that before our brick and mortar existed, you know, as we've mentioned, she's the artist that works with things.
I had so much stuff in that show, and we didn't have a space yet. And the Bass, we rented a storage unit just to collect stuff for me to use for the show. So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to keep it all, even if I had wanted to, I wasn't going to. Because this 8x10 storage unit that was stacked floor to ceiling, wall to, like, there was no space for a single glue stick in there. Like nothing else could have fit. And so Susan's like, hey, like, how about kind of like it was sort of like a soft launch for the Things Lab. Like we had a new name, and we were still just on the chat, but it was like she came and basically managed, like, as we were deinstalling, she took pictures, measurements, posted it on the chat and said, hey, who wants this? Come get it. And nothing was thrown away. Stuff that I even thought was trash. And I don't think that much is trash. So I was like, wow, you got rid of, like, that's amazing. Yeah. That's great.
And we did that in a week because that's all we had for deinstall, right? And I had the exhibitions coordinator like, are you sure you're going to get all this out? And so based on that, you know, a few months later, we had already had the space. The exhibitions coordinator called me and she said, hey, do you guys want to do what you did for Kerry's show as the Things Lab? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, how much would it be? And I'm like, I have no idea. Let's figure this out. Because we had done one arrangement with Juggernaut, which was a little bit of an experiment. Let's see how it works. And, you know, this is, I mean, because these are colleagues in the community, you know, that really are, we're are supportive of what we're doing and willing to help figure it out. So then I said, well, if you trust me and I trust you, let's just say like we'll make it work, and then let it'll help us figure out like what could we charge for this. So anyway, we did that, and then I figured out a structure more or less, and because it's hard to calculate, that kind of
Like the
service.
time,
The time, and it's also part of it is the community we've already built, right? So our first line of defense, if you will, is to go to our chat and our group and say, this is what we have. And then of course there's some things that perhaps nobody wants there. So then you have to go to like the next things. Okay, maybe that's Facebook Marketplace, maybe that's OfferUp, maybe that's Craigslist. You just start to have to add and add and add other things because you just don't you have things to get rid of by a certain day because there's usually a deadline, right?
And also you guys collab with artists because you host workshops.
Yes.
You just started hosting workshops?
Yeah. In August, I think was our first
one.
one.
August 17th was our first one,
That's incredible.
Yeah. Which is something that we've wanted to do. So the idea is that the artist is proposing a workshop based on objects or materials or things that we have here and using that as a jumping off point.
Yeah.
So it could be collage, sewing, performance, poetry. Like it could literally be anything. Like you could have a video document. I don't know. Like, it could be anything. Or curating. Like maybe it's a curating workshop about how to select and like
they come here and it's here.
Yeah. So it's upstairs. So right now, like, cause it's so hot outside, it's like, we have a smaller space up here that we can like host like 8 people comfortably. But then once the weather cools off, we could probably set up tables outside and like, have a little bit of a bigger group. But I think it's a great way to then bring in small groups to like engage with the stuff.
Yeah.
So I found out recently, because I didn't know this, that you guys had a resident artist.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about them? And how did that come about?
So we have a resident artist here with us which is Fresh to Tuesday. And then we've had a visiting artist in residence, which was Alice Raymond. And you'll see some of her work when we do our little tour that's here. And so that happened very organically, actually.
Because they were here in town and she needed like a space to work for a couple of weeks.
Right.
Like to do some stuff. She didn't need a ton of, and it's like, oh, hey, like we probably have something. And so, and the way she works, it kind of seamlessly fit in with what we do because she picks random things. She kind of puts them together. So it's very like a wonderful way of working. And it's kind of like she doesn't have to go out and buy art supplies. She just uses what she has around her. And there's a lot of stuff around her.
So she was actually a little bit overwhelmed.
Probably.
Because normally she doesn't have access to so many things.
Yeah.
She's pretty nomadic.
Yeah.
So she usually works with like literally found objects that she finds, and here she had a lot of objects.
Yeah.
So she was
able to work with everything that's here.
Well, not with everything, but she would pick,
Well, she could have.
She could have. Yeah, she could have.
Yeah. Like she didn't work with everything.
Yeah.
But she could have. Yeah.
And so she made some drawings, she made collages, she made some sculptures. So,
but then what's really fun is because then she took those pieces and kind of hid them back in the store,
right? Yeah.
Like hid them back everywhere. So it's almost like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Like I'm still finding things that I'm like, is this like an Alice piece, or is this just like someone put this here? Like,
and that was, I think, a little bit of a collaboration between us. Like, I think maybe that's the curator and me. I was like, because we don't really have wall space. I mean, we do have a couple of her pieces hung on the wall, but I thought, well, it makes sense to put it out, with everything else. And so there are some challenges to that, because people,
especially because I keep moving it, not knowing it's an art.
Right. There's that too.
Why is this piece of paper in this book? It's so complicated.
So there are some complications with it, but it's also, I think, a lot of fun. So it's a little bit of a Where's Waldo. And so we have a list of works, which I think for the future we have to put an image so it helps people find them.
Yeah. Well, especially if they keep moving.
Right, exactly.
But I think it ties into that whole, like, is it art or is it trash?
Right,
right. Because it's like, where is the line between transforming something from trash or being
Yeah.
disposable into something that's precious
That
or
depends
valuable.
on the viewer, I guess,
Yeah.
the
Of
visitor.
course, or
Yeah.
even the person that's interacting with the
Right.
object, right?
And
Right.
another thing that I loved about Alice in particular, Alice Raymond, I don't know if we said her name. So
Mhm.
Alice Raymond is the artist. And she said she left the works behind because we really didn't have a residency program per se. We just were like, yeah, use the space. And we're like, okay, so how do we do this? And
Yeah.
and so so she left the work behind and she said, well, yeah, just sell it the way you sell everything else. Pay what you value it to be worth within your budget. And I thought, wow, that's really great and generous of you, you know? And she's like, well, I can't really take it with me anyway.
Yeah.
And it's my way of payment back to you for letting me use the space. And I thought, oh, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. I love it. And so we've actually sold a lot of her pieces, and it ranges in what people have paid. But what I love about that is that it also makes art accessible to a lot of people that perhaps could not afford it.
Right.
And so I had somebody yesterday actually say, I really want to get that piece, but I don't think, like, I really can't afford like what I would like to pay for it. And I said, and I really tried to convince him. I was like, it's okay. Like, we were happy that it's going to somebody that really is going to appreciate it. And in the end, he didn't take it. But
that's so incredible
yeah.
to me, because it's almost a new way of collecting artwork. And
Yeah.
for people that can't afford it, they're able
Yeah.
to have a collection of work.
Yeah.
You know, and how better than to be able to actually afford it.
Yeah.
So most people can't afford art.
Yeah. So we don't know if that'll be the model, you know. I'd love it to be the model, but we'd also have to see, you know, we haven't designed the program. I mean,
Right.
yes, you know, we did, you know, we put it forth in a recent grant that we were awarded. And that's definitely, you know, we definitely want to pay the artist some sort of stipend, or some, you know, we want to figure something out, but you know, they may not be willing. You know, we have to finalize the details.
It's like with many things, it's kind of evolves as needed,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
But it seems, I mean, because it's not like if you're a painter and you make wonderful paintings, this probably isn't for you, unless you're wanting to like shake it up and do something weird, and like just kind of challenge yourself and using it as a time of experimentation with stuff that you don't normally have access to. Like, and that's what I think could be really cool about it is, I mean, even in my own practice, like just that playful kind of improvisational quality of like seeing what could happen with no stakes, right? Like you don't come here, like I wouldn't see that someone would come here to like prepare for their painting show, you know, but they might come here to like play and improvise and kind of get into like a different vein of creativity or try to figure some stuff out.
Well, I find that for artists, I think if you're an artist and you're kind of in a slump from what I've heard, or you're kind of stagnant and you're not feeling inspired, you could get inspired by helping other artists.
Totally. Yeah.
And by being in a creative setting.
Or
and it's not necessarily for you by doing
something
something else. And that kind of is this
transferring
of energy.
You're letting go of the stakes, right? The stakes aren't as high.
Right.
Like this could fail. I don't need this to succeed.
So it's like the perfect advice to any artist is to actually go and help another artist. Like realize their vision.
I'm always available for that. If there's anyone out there that's stuck and wants to help someone.
And we are here too.
Oh yeah, true. Sorry, I put myself first. Like
now if let's say other artists wanted to join y'all, how would that go? Because is it the residency permanent? Is it 6 months? Is it a year?
Well, for her, it was 2 weeks. So I think,
okay.
Yeah.
You know, but that's as long as she was here. Like if she was here longer, maybe it would have been longer.
So it's not like an application process.
Well, it might be eventually.
Yeah, I think we need to figure it out. So like I said, everything's evolving the same way that we're evolving. You know.
And it's just the two of us. So it's like, we need to have an application for that. And it's like, where does that fall on the priority list?
Right.
Like really low. Like
right.
So if an artist is interested in like if they need something to blah 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 they just reach out to us.
Yeah, like we've had a few artists that are also, you know, people that we've known for a long time, friends and colleagues that really support what we're doing. And, you know, I had an artist call me from New York and say, you know, hey, when I'm down there, you know, in January, I'd love to do a little residency with you guys. And I'm like, yeah, that would be awesome. So, you know, we have to figure out those details. But we're, you know, open to that. And yes, maybe in the future it would be an application process. We just, we're just doing it one step at a time because again, like Kerry said, it's just the two of us. And we also, this is right now definitely a labor of love.
Yeah.
So we both have to do other work to make a living.
Have you faced any major challenges so far? Or
emotionally? I think the first major challenge was getting a space.
Yeah.
So that was a huge challenge, and it worked out really great. So and I think the challenge then continues, like how to make it sustainable.
Right.
So, and we've both been in the situation like where we're artists being asked to like labor for free.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like you get it all the time. And so we're trying not to do that as much as possible, right?
Right.
And so like we're committed to paying workshop leaders. We're committed to paying like helper, not necessarily volunteers, because that is different, because there is that, but they are still getting paid through the time bank, which Susan can talk about in a second. But it's like we're not getting paid. And so for me, I don't want to be a manager. I've never wanted to be that kind of an adult. I don't, that's not where my energy is best used, or my creativity, or any of the stuff that's good about me. Like none of that is well used in managing anything. I'm good at being bossy and like making something happen. But like, so for me, when I think about this as something to manage, I feel overwhelmed and uninspired and like really super sad. But when I think about it as an art project and a social practice,
it's totally different.
Community engagement, it's a lot different. But there's still a lot of managing that goes into it. That I try to make her do. But but it's because it's so much, and so it's like I was kind of like, Susan, you took that big donation? What the heck were you thinking? Like, we're really busy. We don't have time for that. But it's also like, we're small enough that we have the flexibility that we can say yes to opportunities that come up. Right. Like Juggernaut.
And the best part is that you can make it what you want.
Yeah.
Which is, it's really nice, because sometimes when you have someone over the top and this major boss telling you what to do,
or like a board, or this or that, which is they're all great things, right? And that I think we probably need eventually.
Yeah, and I think I was just going to say that. I'm like, I think eventually, just because, when we started this, we were like, okay, so let's treat this like an artist project. It could last 3 months, it could last 6 months, it could last a year, or it can go on, and we need to become a full nonprofit. Like we just don't know. But let's, I've been there. When I was 23, I started a nonprofit. I had no idea what I was doing. Luckily, I gained some wisdom over the years. I would hope. And so I was like, I don't want to start a nonprofit unless we really know that that there's a need in the community, that there's a want, and that it's something that we're really willing to take on. Right. And so I think we gave ourselves like 6 months. We're like, okay, let's check in at the 6-month mark and see how we feel. And honestly, the response has been completely overwhelming, and everybody's excited. And so I said, I think we need to do it. And so it is a lot. And I feel like I've just sort of started to delve into more of a creative practice, and it's kind of put on hold, but at the same time it's not, because I do think this is work and artwork too. Like I think it's part of our social practice, and Kerry has had that in her work for years, and when I started to really reevaluate a lot of things that I've done over the years that didn't quite have a label, I'm like, oh, that was kind of social practice. Like I didn't really look at it like that, because I wasn't looking at myself as an artist or a creator for that matter. And I still I like the word creator, because what I like is, I created this immersive arts experience. Right. And so I was, wearing the hat of an artist, a creator, an artist, a curator, and a producer at the same time. So that really, and in the world of immersive arts, the word creator is used a lot. Yeah. And so that's why I say we're co-creators of the Things Lab. If it's a grant, maybe I'll say, I usually say co-creator, but, or co-founder, but co-creator is my favorite title, because I feel like that's what we did. We created this. Yeah. And it's an artwork. That's why we say it's an immersive, an ever-changing immersive art installation, because it's constantly morphing, and it's but it's also social practice because it's a socially engaged project that people are really engaging with actively all the time.
One thing I found is that it's almost like I found that like no one really wants to just throw something away.
Right.
Like they may want it away from their immediate presence immediately,
But they want,
but they
someone
don't
to have it and
necessarily
use it.
want to throw stuff
Yeah.
away.
They
Even
want it to
like
go somewhere.
yeah. And so so what happens for a lot of people like me is you end up keeping it because you know it's still useful
Right.
and you know you could use it one day and blah blah blah. And so having this here, different from a thrift store, has somehow like given people permission in a way to like bring those things that they've held on to forever, knowing that there's someone else that can make good use of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, and that's really cool too, because I'm totally subject to that feeling of like not wanting to get rid of something, or when am I ever going to find this cool, weird thing again if I need it, you know, if I get rid of it. And it's like, it's okay. The thing will come to you when you need it.
Right.
Like, I don't need to have all the things right now.
Yeah.
So it's been like a release in a way. Like people have somewhere to put it. People have somewhere to go.
Yeah, and people oftentimes they're like, you know, I've been collecting this or keeping this for so long, and I feel like, oh, now I can give it away because it's going to another artist, and it may or may not go to an artist because we don't want to only serve artists. We really want to serve the community at large, which leads me to like our upcoming event, which is going to happen on November 9th, REUSE-A-PALOOZA.
I love that title.
So it was her idea.
I thought it was like inspired from the heavens, but apparently other people have used it too.
I loved it.
So that was
I love
really
it
sad.
though.
It just like came to me, and it's like, oh,
This is wonderful because I was just going to ask you about, are there any new initiatives in the horizon?
Yeah, so that's our big upcoming event, and I see it as our sort of debut in the community.
Yeah.
Hello, world. So
We're here.
we never really did. We were like, we're going to do a grand opening, and then it's just like, you know, first of all, I was always like, we're not ready to open. We're not ready, and like we just have to do it, like any small business, you know. Which, you know, I mean, we're so many things. Like it's an art project, but in the end, it's a business, and it's going to be a nonprofit. But we have to make it sustainable, right? Especially if we want to keep going, right? So there's a lot of growing pains, and just going back to the management part, I think it's a lot of the firsts are the ones that are difficult, and then like once they get settled
Firsted.
and figured out, then it's like, okay, then it's a little bit smoother, you know. But getting back to the event, so we're gonna take over the back of the parking lot that out here, and we're gonna have different artist activations where I guess we're not ready to announce which artists yet, but we're gonna have different things. Like,
so there's going to be activities where you can use the things to do a thing, or make a thing, or fix a thing,
it's
or
very thing
hear
oriented,
a thing, or sound a thing, or taste a thing, or
It's the Things Lab. So.
Yeah. So, but it is about like kind of resilience through creativity, and like just kind of saying, hello world, like we're here, like come check us out, like play with our things.
Yeah. So I think that's, you know, so we're excited about that. You know, of course it's a lot of work ahead of us, but it's but I think I'm really excited because one of the things that this is a great space, but it's a little bit hidden. So we haven't had the time, because again, it's just the two of us, to do a lot of the community outreach with the neighborhood that we'd really like. So this is, I see it as our opportunity to do that and really reach out to the local community and really have them know that we're here, because like I said, I don't want this to be just for artists. This is for the neighborhood, and ideally there would be a Things Lab in every neighborhood, you know, where people would have access to things that they could afford, like, you know. And so that would be, in an ideal world, there would be something like that. There would be a lending library. There would be, you know, something that they pay what they value, like, you know, that would be ideal. But, you know, maybe that'll happen. We're the first ones. We don't want to become a franchise, but we want to become a model.
And there are a lot of models out there.
Yeah.
So it's like we've looked at, like every time you travel, she finds another lending library that she looks at kids with, and there's like, what's the place in New York?
Materials for the Arts.
So I told Kerry, like, you guys are like the first ones doing. I've never seen.
Well, there has been one, and I think there's one now for teachers. Like, there's something for Miami-Dade teachers. Oh, I've never been there.
Yeah, I think it's Educate Tomorrow. I think it is.
But like, there used to be a place down in Kendall. There was Trash for Treasure in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
But like, they all seem to be like more focused just on teachers,
right?
And so that too is like, like trying to engage the community, right, and everyone, right, to come and
Right.
reuse and like not throw stuff away, but somehow those things, even after years, didn't pan out. And so it's
Right.
like, well, why is it? Is it just because Miami's so different and so spread out and so, and people just don't know about it, or like, what's the deal? Because they have these in like a hometown I grew up in Texas and
Right.
Portland and San Francisco, like all over the place.
Yeah, they're actually common, and
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful that you started this here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to be on the board? No.
Of course.
Yeah.
Here's the best part. Will you show me around?
Yeah.
Thank you, Kerry. So you're going to give us a tour. Show me around, because there's so much to see here.
Yeah. So this is the upstairs area, and so it's normally like kind of off limits to just like regular store goers, but we have like this conference table which Susan loves, which was here where we teach some of our inside workshops. Susan has her office studio space, which is under construction, so don't stress out about that.
Sorry, Susan.
We just had a sewing workshop, so we have some of our sewing paraphernalia out still. And then I have a lot of crap, as you probably already know. And so when I took down the bash show, all of these cushions that I've been collecting for years and years and years, because I use them often. I reuse objects all the time. It was in my studio, and I was like, this is a lot. And then we got the store, and I was like, oh my gosh, Susan, can I put all my cushions on the wall so that they don't have to be stored in my studio?
Okay, so no. I thought that this was an art piece.
It is.
Look at this.
Yeah.
I thought it's so cool. And you have these televisions.
Yeah, and so those are kind of like lending library things and that are, for rent or props. And then the National Geographics, which my downstairs neighbor had given me, and he had gotten them from other artists. And so it's like this crazy collection, like from the 50s of National Geographic.
It's so amazing. Like, I have the Cook magazine collection, like the kind with the illustrations.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I had used it in my show at Locust Projects, but I was like, I don't need to keep them. So we use them for collage. People can buy them. They can take them. It's up to them. And so similar, like, sometimes, like, when I have time, I like to just come in and play with the objects that we get. So, like, to either creatively turn them into something. So we had gotten this, like, photo backdrop paper, and it was all rolled up, and you couldn't even see it. So I was like, well, I'm going to hang it up so at least you can see it.
Okay.
Yeah. And you kind of get like an overview, like upstairs.
Yeah, there's two
of the
floors.
Schooner's downstairs.
I feel like a kid because there's so much goodies.
Yeah, and like you think, even after a little bit in here, you're like, okay, I've seen everything, and then you avert your eyes and you're like, what is that?
Where'd you get this?
Where was that? And so I have a little bit of like some wood here so that it can, display and hang some stuff from here. Okay. This is Fresh's studio. They're not unfortunately, they're in a residency in Indiana, so how exciting is that?
How cool. What a use of space.
And so it's tiny little closet, and me and Susan were going back and forth, like, should we use it as storage? Like, we probably need the space, and it's like, but wouldn't it be cool to have another artist, like, doing art in here? And so Fresh does a lot with, I don't even know that I can explain it really well, but it's like sound and like almost like collected interactions with people. I'm really bad at explaining it.
I love this. It's the Post-its. You see, all you artists have a different system for organizing.
Totally. And there was like a little AC leak in there, so the table got shifted around a little bit before they left.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
All right, we head downstairs.
This is kind of one of my favorite things that I've done because I hate light. Sorry, y'all. But and so this window, and I was like, so I made kind of like a weird stained glass using like translucent colored
an ice maker.
Objects. Yeah.
An ice mold.
And so it's so funny. I was just looking for old pictures of the space, or pictures that I had of the space, and they were old, like when we had first moved in with like the stuff that we had, and it was like, Oh my God, it was so empty then. Like, it's crazy how it is now. And so there's tons of spray paints and this and that, and it's always changing. And a lot of it, and even in my own work, I found that a lot of my work kind of comes down to how can I store something. And so something that may, almost like this, like as a method of storing or hanging something, like hanging jars from string, that then turns into like an art piece. So in my own practice, like the way that I store something almost then turns into the actual art itself.
But is there like a rhyme and reason to how you guys collect the items? Or is it, if someone just wanted to give you something out of the blue, it's not like a drop-off system. There's not
a system per se, but it's tricky because I think that's something that we're probably trying to, like, that we're realizing that we need to be a little more specific about.
Specific.
Because from the beginning, it was always like no books, no clothes.
Right.
Like no kind of toiletry, things like that. And that's just because there's better places for those things. Like bookleggers is going to be better for that. You know, clothes can go to Lotus House or Goodwill or somewhere else. Like there's better places for those things. Because once you get into clothes, like this whole thing could just be a pile of clothes, you know?
Oh my gosh.
And so it's just, there's no end. And so there's things that I probably would prefer not to take, or that Susan would probably prefer not to take. But also too, it's like if someone could use it, then it's sort of hard to say no. But we do still encourage people to for sure use the chat for larger items.
Right.
Like a woman was like, oh, I have a futon to bring you. And I was like, where do you think we're going to put a futon?
No major furniture.
Yeah. So
is there
tricky.
Like something here that you really, really like that you're tempted to just take home?
Oh my God, that's all the time. All the time.
All the time?
Yeah, all the time. And I had to kind of talk myself out of it. And then if it's still here, or be like, do I really need this? And yeah. I'm trying to think, because there probably is. And then I keep bringing things like from home. And I'll take things to use for my students, or yeah, I'm not sure.
So who came up with the concept of you pay what you value?
I think, well, so I do a lot of kind of value exploration in my work. And so, because I have this idea that, I don't know if it's an idea or a philosophy or whatever, but this way, whatever. I don't know how to call it, but it's like that, this idea of like, once you share a story with someone, right, then you've almost created this connection, and you've, created almost love in a way, like there's value, right?
Right.
And so like if this is really a precious thing to me, but to you it's just a shell, it's kind of just trash, like whatever. But then I tell you about the shell and like where I found it and the beach I was on and how my mom had just died. This is all made up, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my mom had just died and I was out on the beach, and I found this shell, and it just made me think of her and this time. So it's like this really precious. So all of a sudden, this thing that was trash to you before has now become valuable to you.
It's become a story.
Yeah, because you're now connected to it in a different way. And so how value can almost be created through like telling our stories and sharing our stories with each other. And how as a community...
Plus memories. Exactly.
And so how like as a community, sharing our stories, sharing our value, right? Not like our values, like our morals, but it's like the stories, right? Then kind of creates love. And so our communities, we can actually become better, even if we disagree, simply by sharing our stories and like listening to other stories. I don't know. That's the idea.
I love that.
I do that a lot in my own work. And so, but for me, I think it really was kind of maybe a little bit of a lazy thing. Like, well, can we just have them pay what they think they should pay? Like, and so I think we just kind of came to it naturally, and yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. Susan might have a different story around that, so that would be interesting.
Can you show us outside? Let's see.
Yeah.
Because you guys are working on a setup here.
Yeah, and so this is that giant, yarn. And
you have an event now.
It's just not really an event. It's just sort of, trying to get rid of, hey, how are you? Look at all this yarn, right?
Cool. Yeah, somebody just came earlier and she makes baskets. So she bought like a bunch of ribbon and like paper grass, like, And so yeah, she got a lot of stuff.
So
So
that
that
also
for
takes
you
a
guys.
Yeah.
I love to see this. Me and my cousin want to do something similar. I'm the one who wants to do it. Like, I'm trying to figure out a way to make it.
So, like, yeah, like, I don't know, but we're also gonna do like rap.
So one of my students from FIU.
Really? Hi. Go FIU.
You're like a fashion designer, and you're gonna make a dress out of it, and you. Like,
But yeah, we'll do weaving. So we're gonna be using a lot of yarn or thread.
okay.
Really? I mean, they don't pay, but but we have I'll show you the space. We have we have an upstairs space. And we want to open more hours, but we just don't like it's only.
This is such
And so-
a good spot.
This is pretty much a labor of love right now.
Yeah.
So it's not like we can really hire anybody. So we're thinking of like, well, we're doing a whole volunteer based.
Come back inside?
Yeah.
I need one. So
It's kind of a tiny parking lot.
but I need.
All right.
Sweet. And the idea is that like almost everything is up for grabs, right? So it's not like I hate going to a thrift store or a shop and being like, oh my god, I love this dresser, and they're like, oh, that's for display only, and you're like,
And they won't let you get it.
you're right.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was like, we can't do that, Susan. But then of course there's like, okay, well, no one can take my desk because I need somewhere to sit, and that's my stool.
Is this the desk? Is this your desk? This one?
Yeah, so because when I'm here, Susan has a space here, right? So she works here.
Yeah.
But when I'm here, I'm mainly just minding the store or doing stuff. And so, like, I like to just be down here.
Thank you guys so much, Susan and Kerry, for having me over and showing us around. This is such an incredible idea. It's such an incredible space, and I love what you're doing. And please, guys, stop by if you can, because I'm going to leave information down below. I'm going to leave Susan and Kerry's info down there. And if you guys have questions for Kerry, if you have questions for Susan, please, please, please contact them. Follow the Things Lab. And thank you for having me.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank
Come visit.
you.
We'll
Thank
see you soon.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.